Battle through the heavens. The smile on Qing Hai's face, that had been filled with a laziness, suddenly changed the moment that delicate, elegant, white-clothed figure appeared. He withdrew his hand in a lightning-like manner. His body shook. He escaped from the solidified space around him. After which, he swiftly withdrew. Who are you? You dare to intervene in the matters of my Hall of Souls? A furious cry was emitted from Qing Hai's mouth while he withdrew. The distorted space slowly became calm in front of a countless number of gazes. That white-clothed figure clearly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The lady was wearing a white dress. Looking from a distance, she emitted an ethereal demeanor. Her snow-white, long hair fell to her lovely buttocks. A gentle breeze blew over and her snow-white hair drifted in the wind, appearing elegant and alluring. Due to her position, many people were unable to see the exact appearance of this lady. However, from her fit, delicate waist, one could tell that she was a rare beauty. Xiao Yan would naturally not find this figure foreign. Who else could this person be other than the little fairy doctor? Have you succeeded? Xiao Yan was stunned as he looked at the little fairy doctor, who had appeared in the nick of time. Finally, he ended up asking out of surprise. The little fairy doctor turned her head. She revealed her lovely smile as her beautiful eyes looked at Xiao Yan. She nodded slightly and curled her lips into an enchanting arc. After which, her eyes suddenly noticed the remnant trace of blood that still lingered on the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth. Immediately, a chill was added to her arc. She softly inquired, "Is he the one who injured you?" "Relax. The one who injured me is suffering from an injury that is 10 times more serious than mine." Xiao Yan smiled. His eyes carefully sized up the little fairy doctor in front of him, and he found that he was no longer able to detect the other party's exact strength. At this moment, the feeling the little fairy doctor gave him was just like an unfathomable, quiet lake that did not allow one to see its bottom. "Your strength? You have broken to the Dou Zun class." Xiao Yan's voice contained a joy that he could not hide. "You are also in cahoots with Xiao Yan." Qing Hai's expression sank as he cried out with a cold voice after seeing Xiao Yan conversing happily with the little fairy doctor. The little fairy doctor finally turned her head over slowly after hearing Qing Hai's cry. Her pretty eyes swept over him. After which, she lightly nodded her head. "This matter is a grudge with my Hall of Souls and Xiao Yan. Please think twice before participating. Otherwise, you might end up offending a faction you cannot afford to offend for just a momentary gain." Qing Hai solemnly cried out. A furious expression flashed across Qing Hai's eyes when he saw this situation. From the way the other party had solidified the space with her bare hands, it was likely that the other person's strength was slightly stronger than his. However, he could not tell if she had stepped up to become a 3-star Dou Zun. How is it possible that so many experts are aiding this brat? 2 Dou Zun. Even my Hall of Souls cannot take this lightly. Qing Hai's heart was somewhat alarmed and uncertain as his gaze swept over Xiao Yan behind the little fairy doctor. He had difficulty imagining just how Xiao Yan was able to get 2 elite Dou Zuns to be his bodyguards, given that he was born on the edge of the continent. Hall of Souls. I have never heard of it. Even if I have, it is not even as important as a single strand of his hair. The little fairy doctor merely smiled and replied in the face of Qing Hai's threat. Xiao Yan was helpless when he heard this. It seemed that Qing Hai was about to jump up and down. These words were too much of a blow. As expected, the little fairy doctor's words had just sounded when Qing Hai's expression turned gloomy. A blue-colored glow was flickering on his eagle-claw-like, shriveled hand. A moment later, he said in a dense voice, "In that case, allow this venerable self to test if you possess the qualification to say these words." Gonda, lead the others to capture that brat. Leave this person to me to deal with. After hearing Qing Hai's cry, the other 9 experts from the Hall of Souls, who were standing in the sky a short distance away, immediately responded in unison. They slowly spread apart and began to surround Xiao Yan as they approached him. The aura of these 9 people were all quite strong. Although they could not be compared with Tian Shi, the leader, who was called Gonda, possessed the strength of a 7-star Dozong. The others were a little weaker, but they were also existences that could not be underestimated. If Xiao Yan were at his peak condition, he would still be able to contend against them. However, it was likely going to be a little difficult with his current condition. The little fairy doctor glanced at her surroundings. She gently opened her mouth and a gray-colored fog was spat out. Immediately, it spread with the wind, transforming into a cluster of grayish fog. Coincidentally, it covered the space around Xiao Yan. This gray-colored fog was not dense and one could see well through it. Those outside could clearly see Xiao Yan, who was within it. However, no one dared to charge forward because anyone who knew their stuff could tell that this ordinary gray-colored fog contained an extremely lethal poison. That Gonda's 9-men group looked at the gray-colored fog. After which, they faced each other. They could sniff a kind of dangerous feeling within the fog. A gloominess flashed across Gonda's eyes. His gaze turned to his companion. He pointed his finger and commanded with a deep voice. The expression of a black-clothed man changed slightly when he heard this. However, under Gonda's dark, grave face, he could only grit his teeth and summon the Dou Qi within his body. The Dou Qi was wrapped around his body before he carefully made contact with the gray-colored fog. Sizzle sizzle. The Dou Qi on the black-clothed man's body had just made contact with the gray fog when it suddenly emitted a sizzling sound. And grayish color surged onto his face with lightning-like speed. After sensing this change, that black-clothed man hurriedly pulled back in horror. After which, he sat in the sky and circulated his Dou Qi to expel the poison. Upon seeing this scene, the expressions of Gonda's group immediately changed. A terror flashed across their eyes when they looked at this gray fog. Seeing that these fellows were helpless, the little fairy doctor finally let out a faint smile. Her pretty eyes turned to Qing Hai in front of her. A chill flashed across her eyes. This old fellow was thinking of capturing Xiao Yan. This was something which she could not allow. I am also thinking of testing just how strong an elite Dozun really is. Today, I shall use you to test my strength. The little fairy doctor sweetly smiled. She gently clenched her hand and a gray-colored aura lingered over her long fingers. Even the surrounding space formed a slight ripple while the gray Dou Qi was flowing around. Qing Hai's expression stiffened when he saw this. Immediately, a fierceness flashed across his eyes. His body moved and space distorted. He took the lead to appear in front of the little fairy doctor. His shriveled hand was just like an eagle claw as it carried an intense spatial ripple and grabbed at little fairy doctor's long neck. The little fairy doctor gracefully shifted her feet and easily dodged Qing Hai's sharp attack. The gray Dou Qi lingering on her hand suddenly swelled. After which, her long fingers pressed against the empty sky, and she pressed them toward Qing Hai's body at lightning-like speed. Qing Hai's expression changed a little when he faced the gray Dou Qi on the little fairy doctor's hands. He could clearly sense danger when that gray Dou Qi rushed over. Bang! A blue-colored glow surged on Qing Hai's fist. After which, it carried a rippling spatial strength as his fist violently smashed into the little fairy doctor's hand. The two had just collided when a dark black spatial line was opened in the sky. The little fairy doctor's lovely body trembled while Qing Hai took 2 to 3 steps back before stabilizing his body. Qing Hai stabilized his body. However, his expression was an unusually ugly one. The vast and might Dou Qi within his body surged. After which, it agglomerated in his palm. A moment later, he could hear a sizzling sound. 3 tiny blood pillars shot out of his palm. A blood stench permeated the interior of the blood pillars. Just what kind of poison vapor is in the hands of this woman? It is this terrifying. A shocked expression flashed across Qing Hai's eyes after forcing out the poison that had invaded his body. It was his first time meeting such a lethal poison. The little fairy doctor did not give chase after forcing Qing Hai back. She moved her body and appeared beside Xiao Yan. After beckoning with her hand, she pulled the poison fog around her. Immediately, the space beside her once again became distorted. Tian Huazunja's figure also appeared at this moment. Xiao Yan is injured. We are outnumbered and should not continue being entangled with them here. Let us leave first before deciding what to do next. Tian Huazunja spoke with a deep voice after appearing. The little fairy doctor slightly nodded. This kind of place was indeed unsuitable to stay for long. I will destroy that cold air barrier. You should bring Xiao Yan and leave. Tian Huazunja looked at the permeating cold air in the sky and spoke. Tian Huazunja did not wait for a reply after saying those words. His body flashed and he appeared under the cold fog barrier. After which, he violently swung his fist. Bang! The punch smashed into the cold fog and the entire cold fog barrier began to shake. The dense, cold fog was swiftly becoming thinner. Qing Hai Zunja, attack. Don't allow them to flee. Tian Shuangzi also understood the intention of Xiao Yan's group after seeing this. His expression turned cold. Their Ice River Valley had summoned such a great army to come to this place. What face would they have if Xiao Yan's group managed to flee in the end? Qing Hai understood what to do when it came to such a situation even without Tian Shuangzi opening his mouth. The both of them flashed, transforming into light shadows as they ruthlessly rushed to Tian Huazunja below, carrying mighty spatial strengths. Qi! The two figures had just rushed out when the little fairy doctor darted out from under Tian Huazunja. She waved her hand and a grey poison vapor spread. Due to them being afraid of the potentness of this poison, both Tian Shuangzi and Qing Hai could only hurriedly stop their bodies. Tian Huazunja once again threw a merciless punch while the both figures paused. After throwing this punch, the cold air barrier that permeated the sky finally revealed a tunnel. A joy appeared in Tian Huazunja's eyes when he saw this. He pulled Xiao Yan to him as he cried out to the little fairy doctor behind him, "Let's go." Tian Huazunja's cry had just sounded when he grabbed Xiao Yan and took the lead to rush through the tunnel that had appeared in the barrier of cold air. However, his body had just advanced when the space around the cold air tunnel became distorted. Dense spatial ripples spread out of it. It is unexpected that the woeful poison body can be controlled. Ugh, I have miscalculated. A sigh was emitted from the distorted space. An ice throne vaguely appeared from space. There was a figure wearing a white robe on the throne slowly standing up. Cold air surged all around them. The chilly air in the sky suddenly reached its peak when the white-robed figure in the distorted space slowly stood up. Snowflakes scattered down from the sky. Within a short moment, the entire Yi city was under a sea of snow. Looking from a distance, it appeared wrapped in silver, looking exceptionally enchanting and cold. The forward-charging bodies of Xiao Yan's three-person group stopped at this moment. Immediately, a sense of danger rose from their hearts. Their bodies moved and pulled back with lightning-like speed. While the three of them were pulling back quickly, a cracking sound was suddenly emitted from within the distorted space. Immediately, a faint black ice stairs was slowly extended out. The white-robed figure slowly descended using these black ice stairs. Countless numbers of gazes were immediately thrown over when this white-robed figure revealed himself. The person who had suddenly appeared was wearing white robes. He had a tall figure, and his face appeared to be quite young. There was some indifference being emitted from between his brows. Even though this was the case, it was still extremely difficult to hide his handsome appearance. However, there seemed to be a feminine demeanor being emitted from his handsome appearance. Additionally, there was a dark black snow flower drawing in between this mysterious, white-robed man's eyebrows. When one's eyes looked at it, this image seemed to freeze even one's soul, appearing exceptionally unusual. The white-robed man placed both of his hands behind him. He stood on the black-colored ice stairs as snowflakes, that scattered down from the sky, whizzed and rotated around his body. The weak snowflakes currently possessed an extremely frightening destructive strength. This is, the Valley Chief of the Ice River Valley Bing He. Heavens, this old demon has actually come himself, for a woeful poison body, he has summoned such a great force. Isn't it a little too frightening? Yi City did not lack some people who possessed great knowledge and experience. Hence, numerous exclamations involuntarily resounded when they saw the white-robed man standing with his hands behind him in the sky. Everyone within the Yi clan had become dull at this moment. Xian Lan's expression was ghastly white. Her body involuntarily swayed a little. The Valley Chief of the Ice River Valley. The great name of this expert was known by almost everyone in the middle region. It was usually quite rare to see such an expert. Unexpectedly, this legendary figure had personally appeared because of Xiao Yan's group. Greeting Valley Chief. Tian Shuangzi in the sky saw this white-robed figure, who had suddenly appeared. A joy surged up his face as he respectfully greeted him. Where is Tian Shi? The white-robed man's eyes slowly swept around him before he suddenly asked. Tian Shuangzi revealed an embarrassed face when he heard this. He pointed to a large pit within Yi City. An unconscious and seriously injured Tian Shi was lying in it. The white-robed man's eyes followed the direction of Tian Shuangzi's finger. He glanced over for a moment before slightly nodding. The snowflakes around him suddenly began to rotate a little faster. It is unexpected that even Valley Chief Bing has personally gotten involved. Qing Hai by the side also cupped his hands to the white-robed man. Although he was also an elite Dozun, Qing Hai was aware that there was quite a large gap between him and this Valley Chief from the Ice River Valley. The gap between each star within the Dozun class was far from what an ordinary person could imagine. It was a kind of extremely fixed hierarchical system. It was quite difficult for someone in the Dozun class to challenge another of a higher level. Moreover, this Ice River Valley's Valley Chief had been renowned in the Central Plains for much longer than Qing Hai. The white-robed man merely nodded in the face of Qing Hai's cupped hands. Qing Hai did not show any signs of being angry due to this. He smiled, unconcerned. Valley Chief Bing, that person called Xiao Yan is someone the Hall Chief has personally asked for. Please give my Hall of Souls some face after you have captured them and hand him to me. Surprise flashed across Bing Zunja's eyes when he heard Qing Hai's words. His eyes weighed Xiao Yan with some interest. This person was personally demanded by the Hall Chief of the Hall of Souls. The glint flickered within Bing Zunja's eyes. A moment later, however, he withdrew the thought of attempting to capture this person together with his target. He had seen that person from the Hall of Souls back then. He was indeed extremely frightening. There was no need to form an enmity with that person just because of this little fellow. That would really not be worthwhile. Even he was a little afraid of this mysterious being known as the Hall of Souls. I only desire the woeful poison body. Bing Zunja's eyes slowly shifted. A moment later, they paused on the little fairy doctor. Both of his eyes emitted an extremely rare heat. Xiao Yan's three-person group had bunched together the moment Bing Zunzhe appeared. Their eyes were grave as they studied him. This fellow's strength is really terrifying. It is likely that he is not weaker than Tang Zhen from the Burning Flame Valley. If we exchange blows with him, it is likely that even the current little fairy doctor will not be a match for him. Xiao Yan's eyes swiftly flashed. This situation was definitely a dangerous one. If they did not resolve it properly, it was likely that this Yi city would really be the place of Xiao Yan's despair. Some of the Dou Qi in my body has recovered. If we really end up at a critical final moment, I will use the final extermination lotus flame even if I have to forcefully do so. Otherwise, it is likely that all of us will have difficulty escaping from this catastrophe. Xiao Yan's eyes swiftly flickered. Various thoughts of fleeing continuously flashed in his heart. Xiao Yan, I will hold them back after this. You and old Mr. Yao should seek an opportunity to escape. A somewhat ice-cold hand gently grabbed Xiao Yan while his thoughts were swiftly circulating. A low whisper was emitted at the same time. Xiao Yan slightly knit his brows. It seemed that the little fairy doctor had also sensed that this Bing Zunzhe would be difficult to deal with. It is likely that it won't be easy even if we wish to leave. The other side possess 3 Dou Zuns. Moreover, there is Bing Zunzhe whom we cannot see through. Tianhua Zunzhe gently sighed. He had finally sensed the severity of the situation. I will not hurt you if you leave with me. Bing Zunzhe seemed to have not heard the conversation between Xiao Yan's group. His gaze contained a fiery heat as he stared at the little fairy doctor. His voice had also become unusually gentle. In your dreams. The little fairy doctor's face was ice-cold. A gray-colored flow lingered over her hand. There was a deadly aura permeating around here. This was woeful poison vapor. However, this woeful poison vapor had currently become the sharpest weapon in the little fairy doctor's arsenal. The woeful poison vapor had just appeared when it swiftly agglomerated into a poison arrow. It emitted a swoosh sound. The space in front of it became distorted, and it disappeared. The space in front of Bing Zunzhe also became distorted. The poison arrow shot out from it, targeting his heart. Bing Zunzhe merely smiled in the face of the poison arrow that had jolted over. His head leaned back slightly and he inhaled with his mouth. A suction force was emitted and he sucked the woeful poison vapor into his body. A gray aura surfaced on Bing Zunzhe's face as the woeful poison vapor entered his body. A moment later, this grayish color disappeared. The unusual glow in his eyes also became denser. This is the purest woeful poison vapor. Bing Zunzhe's face was extremely comfortable after inhaling a deep breath of air. Immediately, he felt some melancholy as he sighed, the purer it is, the greater the desire I have to obtain you. Once I have obtained you, my woeful poison body might become the most perfect constitution. The expressions of Xiao Yan's group changed when they heard these words. They looked at Bing Zunzhe with shocked faces. He also possessed the woeful poison body. The woeful poison body is divided into those natural and artificial ones. My woeful poison body is an artificial one. However, it doesn't matter. As long as I am able to obtain her woeful poison body, I will be able to make up for this defect. Bing Zunzhe gently licked his lips. His sinister voice resounded around Xiao Yan's group while he did so. So it is an artificial woeful poison body, Xiao Yan sighed in relief. He had heard that it was possible to make a woeful poison body. However, it was extremely difficult. Moreover, one would have to bear the great risk of dying. Even if one ended up succeeding, one might only possess a useless constitution in the end. It was many times lousier when compared to the little fairy doctor's natural woeful poison body. No wonder the Ice River Valley is searching for a woeful poison body. It is because of this reason. Bing Zunjia rubbed the black-colored snow flower between his eyebrows after speaking. After which, he gently laughed, "I am really too excited. I have told all of you this." The black-colored snow flower flashed as the laughter sounded. The snowflakes that were whizzing around him instantly turned a strange black color at this moment. After which, he lifted his hand and gently pointed at Xiao Yan's group. "Qi." That whizzing, black snowflakes immediately swept out after his finger pressed down. After which, they shot toward Xiao Yan's group from all directions. The little fairy doctor and Tian Huazunjia's expressions slightly changed when they saw Bing Zunjia unleash an attack. The two of them blocked Xiao Yan. Mighty Dou Qi surged out of their bodies and formed a monstrous Dou Qi wall in front of them. Qi Qi Qi. Countless black-colored snowflakes shot into the large Dou Qi wall like hidden weapons, deeply embedding into it. After which, wave after wave of strange black color swiftly spread apart. In the blink of an eye, it was saturated in the Dou Qi wall. Bang! The Dou Qi wall collapsed following the spreading of the black color. Two unusual black colors transformed into two ferocious-looking black dragons. They carried roars as they charged toward the little fairy doctor and Tian Huazunjia. The little fairy doctor and Tian Huazunjia swiftly withdrew when they saw this. Two mighty Dou Qi pillars surged out of their palms and violently collided with the two black dragons. Bang! The two collided and a spatial cracks spread apart like spider webs. Humph! This fierce exchange caused the little fairy doctor's and Tian Huazunjia's bodies to tremble. A muffled groan was emitted from their throats. Immediately, their feet pushed against empty air, and they swiftly withdrew 100 meters. They fought 2 against 1, but the one who had obtained the upper hand was Bing Zunjia. His might was actually this terrifying. Bing Zunjia smiled faintly after defeating the little fairy doctor and Tian Huazunjia with one attack. He glanced at Xiao Yan. After which, he randomly waved his hand and one of the black dragons, that had disappeared, was once again formed. It roared as it pounced toward Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's eyes gradually turned blood-red when he saw the black dragon charging over. The heavenly flames within his body had already been merged beforehand. A somewhat illusionary fire lotus was slowly appearing in his palm. The black dragon roared and pounced over. It was accompanied by a bloody wind as it was swiftly magnified in Xiao Yan's eyes. With the approach of the black dragon, the fire lotus on Xiao Yan's hand gradually became less transparent. However, his expression was growing paler. The black dragon had fiercely rushed over in front of a countless number of eyes. However, just as the fire lotus in Xiao Yan's hand was about to completely appear, the space in front of him suddenly distorted. 2 elderly figures appeared in a strange fashion. They waved their sleeves and scattered the black dragon. After the black dragon crumbled, a green-colored figure began to slowly appear in the distorted space behind those 2 elderly figures. A gentle voice that contained an ethereal aura resonated over the land. If he is injured, the Ice River Valley will disappear. A soft, gentle voice lingered over the sky. The snowflakes across the sky suddenly paused when the voice spread. After which, they melted, forming visible ripples that spread out in all directions in a circular fashion. Xiao Yan, whose eyes were blood-red, suddenly trembled when this gentle voice, that contained an ethereal feeling, reached his ears. The blood color within his eyes swiftly scattered and the annihilation fire lotus in his hand quietly disappeared. Xiao Yan's throat vaguely rolled as his eyes slid to the distorted space with an expression of disbelief. This voice, almost a soul-deep familiarity. Even if Xiao Yan had forgotten his own voice, this voice, that had already been deeply imprinted in his heart, would never be forgotten by him. Sonaire. Xiao Yan's throat rolled. A moment later, a soft muttering tone slowly unfurled from his mouth. The voice contained a false dreamlike feeling within it. The expression of Bing He, which had originally been indifferent, changed because of this sudden unexpected change. His eyes stared at the two elderly figures in front of the distorted space, and they immediately narrowed. While Bing He's expression changed, his gaze landed on the distorted space. A delicate, green-colored figure slowly walked away from that spot. After which, she gently strode out of the distorted space in front of a countless number of eyes, appearing in this snowflake land. The green clothes on the lady's body were not luxurious. However, they faintly contained a distinguished aura that seemed to originate from nature. This kind of distinguishment was not that of an earthly aura. Instead, it was a noble aura that belonged to the overlord of this world. It was just like the bloodline of a king with a long history, and it had not vanished despite time. The figure's long black hair was randomly restrained by a pale purple ribbon, compliantly hanging along the moving figure's body. Occasionally, a gentle breeze would form and the black hair would flutter, emitting a feeling out of this world. The figure appeared as though she was a fairy who had accidentally entered the mortal realm, possessing an ethereal aura that did not allow others to hide. Many eyes were shifted up and paused on the flawless face of the green-clothed lady. Her white skin appeared as though it would break by just blowing over it, even though it contained an alluring, rosy redness. There was a gentle smile on her face that possessed the gentleness of a spring breeze. This smile was filled with an unusually magical aura. It was as though all the worries in one's heart would instantly disappear upon seeing her smile. This kind of lady appeared as though she was a fairy with the spiritual aura of the world covering her, causing her to appear perfect. The green-clothed lady slowly walked out of the distorted space. She did not look at Bing He. Instead, she slowly turned around in front of a countless number of eyes. Her bright pupils gently glanced at the young man behind her. An involuntarily sweet laugh was emitted when she saw the look of disbelief on the face behind her. The smile that had suddenly bloomed was just like an epiphyllum, emitting a shocking allure. This caused a countless number of people below to become absent-minded under her beautiful smile. A smile that could destroy a city. Idiom, describe a great beauty that could bewitch the ruler and result in the downfall of a city. The picture-like lady shifted her feet and arrived in front of Xiao Yan. She extended her clean, white, jade-like hand and gently pressed it on Xiao Yan's head. It was as though she was estimating his height. An alluring ripple finally rose within her bright pupils, which were usually as rippleless as an old well. Xiao Yan Gge. The girl stood prettily in front of Xiao Yan as everyone around watched. Her bright lips parted and a gentle voice as smooth as silk gently sounded. Xiao Yan widened his mouth. His heart trembled due to his excitement. However, his face did not show that he had lost himself. His watched that lady whom he had thought of frequently. During these few years, the girl back then had become extremely beautiful. Moreover, Xiao Yan was pleased to find that there was still a familiar feeling in her autumn water-like eyes that warmed his heart. The appearance of the lady in front of him had really changed. Her demeanor, strength, and face was sufficient for her to become the goddess within the hearts of many people. However, the moment Xiao Yan laid his eyes on her, he understood that regardless of how she had changed, she was still that little girl who liked to follow beside him and repeatedly call out, Xiao Yan Ge. Xiao Yan's body gently trembled. A moment later, he was finally unable to endure the emotion that had been suppressed in his heart for many years. He took a step forward, extended his arms, and embraced the extremely beautiful lady in front of a countless number of exclamations. This sudden action of Xiao Yan had slightly surprised Sun Er. Her small mouth emitted a soft gasp before a bright redness flew onto her face. She gently struggled for a moment before giving up. Both she and Xiao Yan were no longer the youths from back then. She could sense the emotions that had been suppressed in Xiao Yan's heart. This feeling caused warmth to appear in her eyes. The eyes of the two black-clothed elders, who had appeared earlier, suddenly revealed a sharpness the instant Xiao Yan hugged Sun Er. However, after seeing that Sun Er did not even put up the slightest resistance, they ended up facing each other. Immediately, they helplessly shook their heads. They were already somewhat aware of why Sun Er had brought them along on this trip of hers out from the Gu realm. However, they still felt some disbelief now that they had witnessed it with their own eyes. There was an unknown number of young, handsome men with monstrous talents within the Gu clan who were infatuated and attracted to her. However, all of them merely received an indifferent treatment. Even when she was occasionally chatting with a smile, there would be a cold indifference, that kept one at a distance, being emitted from her. These two old men had never met any man who dared pull Sun Er into an embrace in all these years. If this matter is to spread in the Gu realm, it is likely that those brats would go crazy. A white-haired, black-clothed man rolled his eyes and involuntarily muttered. Miss Sun Er's eyesight should be very good. From what I know, this person is a person from the Xiao clan. The other black-clothed, old man faintly added. Xiao clan. That person's descendant? The white-haired, old man was startled when he heard this. Immediately, his eyes were somewhat strange as he glanced at Xiao Yan. After which, he smiled and said, no wonder. However, even if this is the case, it isn't easy to obtain the acceptance of the Gu clan. After all, he is merely that person's descendant and not that person himself. Moreover, young Miss is someone from the Gu clan, whose bloodline has been perfectly cared for nearly 1,000 years. Young Miss will know her limits with regards to this. It is useless for us, old fellows, to say anything. Cuckoo, hopefully. While these two were softly chatting, Tian Huazunjia and the little fairy doctor behind Xiao Yan were startled by this scene. Tian Huazunjia was still all right. He was merely surprised that Xiao Yan was acquainted with such a powerful person. The strength of the two black-clothed, old men was something that even he could not see through. They were at the very least 2 stars higher than him. The little fairy doctor's eyes were stunned as she studied Xiao Yan's back. After which, she glanced at the person in Xiao Yan's embrace. A slight dimness flashed across her pretty eyes without being detected. She had occasionally heard Xiao Yan mention this lady named Sun Er. From the tone he used when speaking about her, she was able to identify a hint of love. This caused her to be somewhat surprised. She clearly understood Xiao Yan's character. This fellow might appear warm, but he had seldom revealed such an emotion to anyone, especially a lady. This kind of love caused even the little fairy doctor to involuntarily feel some envy within her heart. Ever since she had been acquainted with Xiao Yan, she had only seen Xiao Yan reveal such an emotion once. The source of this emotion was the green-clothed lady in his embrace. Xiao Yan ruthlessly hugged the person in his embrace. The lady's gentle body had poured a kind of energy into his heart, that had become somewhat tired after this battle. Sun Er allowed Xiao Yan to hold her. Some pityness flashed across her bright eyes. She was clearly aware just how difficult it had been for Xiao Yan after she had left. His clan was nearly destroyed, and his teacher was captured. These numerous blows had ruthlessly pressed down on his tender shoulders, causing Sun Er to feel a pain in her heart for him. However, the thing that caused her to feel pleased was that Xiao Yan did not collapse in the face of these hardships. He stubbornly endured through them and slowly walked from the Jiao Ma Empire to the Black Corner region and from the Black Corner region to the Central Plains. Moreover, he had shined bright in the process. The current Xiao Yan was no longer that tender, young man, who could only rely on his heated blood to do things. Instead, he was a genuine expert. Xiao Yan Ge, don't blame Sun Er for not being beside you all these years, Sun Er's gentle voice appeared to possess a demonic strength, causing the fatigue in Xiao Yan's heart to quietly disappear. His passion and liveliness suddenly recovered because of her. Do you think of me as such an unreasonable person? Xiao Yan smiled. He gradually returned the emotions back into his heart. After which, he rubbed Sun Er's head and relaxed his arm. After seeing this person once again, he felt as though his entire body was filled with an endless amount of strength. You are injured. Sun Er's bright eyes suddenly paused on some blood traces on Xiao Yan's body. Her pretty eyes froze as she softly asked. Her voice might be gentle, but Xiao Yan keenly sensed the surrounding natural energy begin to quietly surge. The one who made me bleed currently has an injury that is 100 times worse than mine. Xiao Yan smiled. His finger pointed at a couple of deep pits and some rubble within Yi City. Sun Er curled her mouth into a smile. Her beautiful pupils looked at the cold air permeating all around her. After which, she gently turned around. Her pretty eyes stared at Bing He a short distance away. A golden-colored flame slowly appeared in her bright eyes while her gentle voice slowly sounded. Will you leave the subsequent matters to Sun Er?